right? I kind of stepped away a couple of years ago, and I feel like I can go back now, and we're probably at roughly the same point.
Yeah.
Right? You can jump back in and not miss a beat.
Yeah.
Here, I can't take 2 days off without state of the art just looking drastically different.
It's changed again.
Start over.
Welcome to Cloud Realities Live, a conversation show exploring the practical and exciting alternate realities that can be unleashed through cloud-driven transformation. I'm Dave Chapman.
I'm Sjoukje.
And I'm Rob Kerner.
And we are here on day 3 of Google Next 2024 in Vegas. As usual with these sorts of things, day 3 generally tends to have a slightly less enthusiastic and bouncy air for a whole host of reasons. Is that how you're feeling today, Sjouk?
I feel very, very hyped again today. Yeah.
Why do you look so surprised?
That makes one of us then, because I just like,
woohoo! Now, I've seen some cool demos yesterday at the end of the afternoon.
Oh yeah? What kind of thing struck you?
There was the UPS demo. We already mentioned it briefly, but that's very cool. You should really check that out with the packages. And I just walked around. It's a good vibe.
There is a good vibe. I'm going to say, I'm going to make a declaration now.
Are you going to use a superlative, Rob?
Well, best conference vibe ever.
That is a superlative.
And it's a really nice. I walked in this morning and I just thought, actually, it's a really relaxed feeling. The sometimes at conferences, MWC and others, it can feel very intense all the time. And actually, it doesn't put you on edge. It's well done. I am impressed.
You are particularly today not looking on edge.
70%. Brain needs to do a few garbage collects before I'll be back on form.
So last night was the party event at Google Next, which had Anderson .Paak and Kings of Leon playing.
It was,
which I enjoyed.
It was you impressed me. The stadium's really nice, the Allegiant Stadium.
It certainly is.
Impressed with that, and also the sound quality was exceptional.
It was. Unlike the choice of songs, I would say. To me, early Kings of Leon, I actually really liked first 3 albums. They weren't harvesting from them last night.
There'd be a lot of people at that event which weren't born when that was coming out. So yeah, you got to balance that with there's the whole audience and not people who remember the invention of the telephone. So
fair. Now we were going to have an item this morning, I think, weren't we, Rob, about another funny swag item?
We were, but unfortunately we challenged our producer. And he's gone on strike.
He literally refused.
He said he's on strike.
Literally refused. He actually looks annoyed at the moment.
He does, but we're not spotting any difference with this strike, though, so I think productivity may well go up at this point.
Yeah, so less noise.
Well, I checked all the swag, but there's nothing left.
It's all gone.
It's all gone.
Oh.
So it's... and sustainable, eh? So sustainability in swag
sustainable
is really...
producer.
Yeah.
Striking and sustainable.
But sustainable swag is really important, and it's all green, and so it's gone. So not overproduced.
Sounds like an excuse to me, that.
Does to me too.
It does.
Anyway, let's roll on. So, last day, what other announcements have we picked up on?
I have a couple of announcements left.
Mm-hmm.
First, I want to focus a bit on the infrastructure part, because there are some huge innovations there as well. So Axion was announced, which is Google's first custom ARM-based data center processor, and which will deliver much more performance and energy efficiency. Also, Google announced that the NVIDIA's next-gen Blackwell platform will also come to Google Cloud in early 2025. And this has support for AI and HPC workloads. And the last one I want to cover a bit in more detail is the Imagen 2 model. And this is not a new model. It was already launched in December, but it's now generally available in Vertex AI with 2 new capabilities. And their biggest upgrade now is text-to-live images. So it can create short 4-second videos from text prompts.
Right.
Yeah, so that's really cool. They're pitching it as a tool for marketers, creatives, like a GIF generator for ads. And the only thing is that it's still in low resolution now. 360 pixels by 640 pixels. And this will be improved in the near future.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I think the overall impression I've got from the conference has been one of focus, one of really trying to bring AI tooling and the reality of using AI in multiple different ways to the forefront, and really not only in the forefront of like how you might leverage the Google Cloud, but actually in the forefront of all of the messaging, all of the sort of application of it. And, you know, we're going to talk to a couple of interesting folks today from Google. One of the things I'm interested to dig into is the use of agents and how agents are going to be front and center in all of the interfaces. What have you picked up on that, Rob?
It's the maturity of how a human can interact with another organization. Yeah. So you got this thing about it's becoming easy to interact, whether you're inside that organization and trying to interact with itself, or whether you're outside and trying to work with that organization without actually having to have a human in the loop. But it feels better. So what we've got here is this ever-increasing compelling experience that we've always driven through digital, yeah? So we love the great app experience on our phones and well-designed websites. And now, when we want to dig a little deeper and start being more inquisitive, this is the technology that's going to make that compelling. And that's going to drive more interaction and hopefully be more creative.
Indeed. Well, look, let's get into that and let's go to our conversations with our guests today. So first of all, we're going to talk to Kevin Shatzkamer. He's the Managing Director of Conversational AI at Google Cloud. And then after Kevin, we're going to talk to Miku Jha, Director of AI ML Partner Engineering at Google Cloud. And we're going to talk to Miku about the use of AI within software engineering itself. So with that, let's go to our conversations. We are deep diving into conversational AI with the Managing Director of Conversational AI, Kevin Shatzkamer. Kevin, good to see you.
It's nice to see you. I'll be interested now to listen to some of your other podcasts to hear if everyone's particularly interesting or just my session.
Well, that's a fair question.
You know what? We'll get the we'll ask. We've got all the transcripts of all the shows, and we put it in a Gen AI bot, and you can ask it questions, which is quite cool. I quite like it. Well, let's query it, Podbot, and see if Dave and check that metric.
Yeah, let's do that.
This is a challenge now.
That's my determining factor on if I return next year.
Yeah.
Well, it's a high billing. It's a high billing. So you got to live up to it now, though.
I got it.
You got it. Perfect. Well, before we jump into conversational AI, how's Next been for you so far this year?
It's been good. I think, being in Vegas for the first year, the scale has certainly increased.
Very
the
much
number
so.
of steps that you take has certainly increased quite a bit. I think it feels focused this year, right? And maybe in the past, the art of the possible with generative AI, even just 8 months ago, it was not grounded in metrics. It was not grounded in value. It was not yet grounded in actual operational results yet.
Right.
It was all art of the possible and intent to.
Yeah.
This year, I think there's a lot of feeling that it's focused. We'll talk about what some of that focus is, I'm sure, but I think there's real implementation, real value, and real results that have been driven. I think I have a whole bunch of perspectives on why that's happened so quickly, and maybe we'll discuss it.
I am particularly interested in that because the rate of acceleration around it is pretty dramatic.
A lot happened in 8 months then, right?
Yeah, it's funny. Before the role that I'm in, I used to lead transformation for the telecom sector, specifically at Google. And, it's like you had the transformation bat. And no matter how many times you hit an organization with it, transformation didn't really take root, right? It was all incrementalism. You didn't see a lot of the big moves that you'd want to see. It was really small turns of the dial.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But Gen AI it's kind of flipped it on its head, right? And I think in some ways we find customers leaning in, and it puts us on our heels sometimes in terms of how fast they want to move.
Yeah.
And that's saying something, right, for Google.
Yeah.
And what is it when customers are approaching you guys, what is it they're specifically pushing on? Is it because they've sort of drunk some Kool-Aid around Gen AI and they're like, right, we just want to do something with it? Or are they coming with sort of specific large-scale implementation ideas?
I think that's moved. So maybe it would be good to take a step back and kind of share what I do and how my role fits in. So I actually lead a technical consulting organization out of product engineering. So our team was originally focused on post-sales implementation of conversational AI in and around the contact center, building virtual agents, helping in containment, building assistive capabilities that face agents. And then when Gen AI and large language models really hit, call it 20 months ago, we pulled our team out of professional services, put them in engineering because we're able to iterate faster on improvements from a product perspective. Yeah. And I think we entered a world of incubation, and incubation kind of took two lenses. One is, how do we take products and how do we put them into applied AI scenarios with real customer data to prove value, prove maturity, prove that they work the way we expect them to versus the sample data that we've trained a lot of our models against. Mm-hmm. And then secondarily, let's work with our top customers on what they want to explore.
Right.
And we kind of moved in a very rapid fashion from just pure exploration to really starting to hone in and focus on where engineering exploration was interesting enough to believe we can find levers of repeatability, and then integrating those levers of repeatability back into product.
So you mentioned that you had some particular perspectives on why you've seen such a movement in the last 8 months. What do you put it down to?
Yeah, I think maybe two things. First off, it's a board level conversation. Right. Every single board, every single CXO suite is asking the same thing of their teams, right? What are you doing in generative AI? And I think that's because it became so accessible when ChatGPT came out, and you can just start asking questions. You can write poetry, you can write music, things like that. But it showed the potential of AI being creative and not just for automating repetitive tasks. And I think that shift from the top down, coupled with the fact that when we talk to customers now, it's hard to take a pure consulting lens. I'm sure you experience this as well.
Right.
Because when you start with pure consulting on a whiteboard, you probably have some historical trends and data and experiences and use cases to pull from. And we just didn't have that here.
Right.
It's new. So, it's completely new, isn't it, in the way we're doing it?
So what our customers came to us with and is not, let's talk about Gen AI. It's, we have developers, you have developers. Instead of whiteboarding and then starting to build an MVP and then moving from there and trying to build business case up front, it was almost this, let's race to MVP. Let's start to accumulate a level of understanding in terms of how these things perform and what they're capable of. And then let's take that step back and go back to whiteboarding, think about scale, think about business case, think about the right use cases.
Right.
I mean, what's nice about that is that approach to way of working. And I do think we discussed this yesterday, where we said AI has probably gone so fast because it's built on cloud, and cloud allows you to do that. And it's the digital culture seeping through to say, let's race to something. We know we want to do it, but we're not going to predefine anything. We're just going to go and see what happens and raise skill. And I think that's nice to see that coming through, because 10 years ago, that probably wouldn't have been the conversation in the same space. So it's that way of working change that's also, I think, cloud's powered.
And that way of working also unlocks a lot of creativity, right?
Yeah. I think it's what you find on the way.
Yeah.
So the journey's as valuable as the end state, because you're discovering as you go, turning the corner. Oh yeah, didn't know that. Let's go.
I mean, it's not too long ago when we thought about just pure infrastructure and enterprise, and what did you need to go manage infrastructure? You need someone who understood compute. You need someone with strong networking, someone who understood the firewall, someone who understood load balancing, all of this technology, and it just got absorbed into an API and cloud.
Yeah,
the same thing's happening here in AI, right? You don't need, in a lot of instances, deep data science and machine learning. Right, generative AI really made AI accessible to business owners and developers.
And that's the key. The accessibility of the human nature of it has widened the group that can now get access to the technology.
Agreed. And
do you think the fact it appears conversational is sort of lulling people into it, if you see what I mean? It's like, it's very approachable. And do you think there's an element of that in it? Because, like, say, more hardcore tech doesn't feel like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yet the transformational complexity driven by AI is just as high as more hardcore tech, if you see what I mean.
For sure. I mean, if in a data science world, right, AI wasn't accessible to most enterprise because the best data scientists on the planet were being absorbed by Google and our competitors, right?
Exactly.
And they'd have pens in their top pocket and white coats on and walk around,
and now, look, if you're a full stack developer, it's accessible to you, but more importantly, right, you don't need to be a full stack developer. Your primer for the language of AI you learn in grade school.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right. So going back to customers then and the conversations you're having with them at the moment, what sort of scale of implementation are you seeing? And let me just frame that up a little bit for you in terms of the accelerated pace that seems to be going on. Like when you look at the advent of cloud, let's say it's 10, 13 years ago, whatever it is, it probably took 5 or 6 years for that to become a very large-scale holistic transformation conversation. And I think we have seen AI move to that point where it's, as to your point, like just last summer it was use cases, 6 or 8 months later we're into much larger scale point transformations, and I'm guessing certainly by this time next year, if not this side of Christmas, we'll be talking about AI-enabled enterprises and large-scale enterprise transformation. So do you recognize that as is the journey we're on, and how big are use cases at the moment from your perspective?
So yes, I think the journeys may be different than cloud, right? And you're putting me on the spot. I haven't really thought about this, so let's see what kind of stream of consciousness comes out here.
That's what it's about.
This is the best one.
Yeah.
I think cloud was a very deliberate migration. Right. It was very clear the amount of work that needed to be done in terms of moving workloads, in terms of moving data, in terms of then transforming your applications and modernizing your applications. I think there was a pretty well understood blueprint of really large bodies of work that needed to happen.
Right.
Maybe this journey is a little more subtle, right? Because it's being incorporated into every task and you may not even realize it.
Right.
Like if you were to ask a software engineering manager what percentage of their team is using a coding assistant, I'm not sure they know, right? But all of a sudden, more code is being churned out, and your software engineers are more efficient. And that I don't know that we're asking the why as often as we should right now to know how this stuff is being absorbed. And I think that's been part of the risk that enterprises have had as well, is that they go to these open systems that sit on the internet, and they're putting proprietary data out there or trying to write code that they're reincorporating back into their products.
Right.
And I think that the enterprise grade nature of building the right guardrails, the right confidentiality, the right security to ensure that it can be used within the enterprise environment. Once you establish that framework through some kind of central governance, the decentralized nature of Gen AI consumption within an enterprise is really difficult to pinpoint.
Yeah. And do you think that, I mean, it's within organization and it's within society, I think that's that's that same usage factor and that usage profile.
Yeah, I think, we'll date myself, and maybe you'll jump in and date yourselves with me here, right?
Yeah.
25
we're all
years
in this
ago,
together.
25 years ago, when we really saw internet take off, right? When we saw Google take off, when we found ease of access to information, right? At all levels of society, the people who knew the most weren't as valuable because everyone had information at their fingertips at that point.
Right.
And I think that's what's kind of happening in this transition as well, is that, it's not just access to information, but it's the ability to create. That's everyone's a creative.
I mean that's the thing that surprises me most about the AI revolution that we're in the middle of at the moment. Was it was relatively predictable that it was going to come along and deal with logic-based problems and deal with rule-based problems. It's the level of creativity and the speed at which that's evolving that's slightly breathtaking.
Agreed.
Well, I like this was done the other day. You just now can prompt and it'll create a short video for you off a prompt. So before, if somebody had said create a 10-second video of this, you'd probably go, oh, that's going to be complex. And now you can literally write a couple of sentences and boom, it's there.
Yeah.
And it's just, that is a massive leap in the ability to create. Yeah. So it's the amount of toil that's been taken out of that process as an example is huge.
I think as much as we love the creative aspects, right? We love that it can create images. We love that we can create videos. We love that we can create conversations and marketing briefs and sales plays and all this other stuff. I think what's most overlooked when we talk about generative AI is the why that's possible. Right. And the why that's possible is the superpower of large language models to understand human intent.
Right.
And I think we kind of glance over that and say, I wrote something got created. Look how cool what I created is. And we miss, look how it understood what I was asking.
Yeah, and there's a deep complexity in processing that and then creating something. So
what's going on there then? Because it's a perspective I hadn't actually thought about. So just go a level deeper and how is it doing that? Like what's going on in there?
Yeah, I think, look, it's the transformers that were created by Google and then released to the public world through various research reports, call it 8-9 years ago, maybe. That's the foundation technology. When we talk ChatGPT, that's the T, right?
Right.
And the transformer architecture is the predictive understanding of not just what words mean, but what sequence of words mean and how to predict the intent behind sequences of words. And I think that foundational technology, the more data you feed it, the more corpus of information you feed it, which is why we talk about, hundreds of billions of parameters at this point, the more it understands the nuances of intent across different cultures, across different languages, across different scenarios. And then obviously all the fine-tuning technology that we talk about once your model's created to really focus it on the particular task at hand. It's just super powerful.
Yeah, did you see the quote from Musk? I think it was earlier this week, where he said that by the end of the year this year, AI will be more intelligent than any single any single human. Where do we stand on that?
It's a bold prediction, because there's always this thing about, and we've debated this on the show, but about the difference between the human factor and the pure technology factor. But if it's indistinguishable to input and output, and you don't know what's in the box,
right,
then maybe that's his point, which is obviously when we interact on a human level, there's a lot of emotion there, etc., etc. But if I put an input in and I get an input out and I don't know what's in the middle, and it's an AI versus a human, and it's indistinguishable, then, and it gives you the right answer,
right?
Maybe he's right.
Yeah.
I have my doubts.
Have your doubts?
Yeah, by the end of this year?
It depends on the task, right? Like I think about summarization as an example, right? And inside a contact center, at the end of every single call, an agent's expected to summarize what happened. And there's fairly standard formats for doing that, right? What was the situation? What was the action that was taken? And what was the resolution?
Right.
And what we tended to find is when we started to look at those summaries from humans, right? There were a lot of noise and they missed some of the signals. And as conversations got longer or a call got longer, there was even more noise in the system because of that human emotion factor. We tend to think something's important in the grand scheme of things or in the moment when maybe it isn't. And in instances like that, AI is really good at finding the signals and eliminating the noise. Maybe AI is better at a baseline perspective than most humans.
Already.
At any given point in time, I would expect a human to be able to outperform AI.
So you were saying that one of the interesting conversations you've had this week was one around measuring success in conversational AI.
Yeah.
What resonated with you in that?
Conversation? Look, everyone's tracking to the same business challenges, right? It's EBITDA, it's in a contact center, it's call containment, it's customer experience, NPS, et cetera, right? Translating into sales and revenue and OpEx reduction, all of those things. What was really fascinating to me on a panel that I hosted yesterday is one of our customers said that what they're measuring against now in these conversational AI interactions is the human factor.
Right.
And what they're starting to observe is that people are saying please and thank you to the virtual agents, right? So that there's like this human connection that's happening.
Yeah.
That if you think about even when you interact with virtual agents, either you're fatigued by them and you try as quickly as possible to get to a human, or you speak to them in one word,
right,
because you're trying to find what that keyword is that matches to how you understood an IVR to work or something like that.
Yeah.
But that human connection, I think, is a big step forward, and it's awesome. It's awesome.
And
to watch.
I think that's that from an interaction perspective and a customer experience perspective, that's very powerful, because the agent that went before, as you say, was more mechanical. You could detect it very quickly and it was frustrating. Whereas now, I think when you use these types of models and they are responding in the way you want it to and expect it to, that's a better experience for the human, isn't it? And and that's more that allows organizations to get the benefit of implementing technology up front in the process.
For sure.
Because it doesn't turn people away. Sometimes I'd go to a website, I have to interact through a virtual agent. That's shut down. I'm not using you. Go away. I'll go to the organization that has the more compelling experience.
Yeah, I mean,
well, certainly with things like telephone banking, I feel like that. It's like I miss when you used to go into telephone banking, and you knew you just had to press 0 a couple of times and you just short circuit the
keep
thing.
spamming 0 and the IVR went, we'll get him through to a human.
Exactly, I miss those days. Those shortcuts,
So I thought, maybe a year ago, our team experimented with a dating agent. Almost, and it was almost like a coaching agent to kind of help in interacting with people in general.
So an AI coaching humans on how to interact
with people. And it was interesting because we tried to make it conversational. You tried to make it chit chat, right? Like, let's just talk. Let's not have a goal. Let's not have a purpose. Let's just have running conversation. And it almost felt like it was a barrage of questions, right? Because I'm just trying to continue on and carry on a conversation. It wasn't relatable.
Right.
It's like, I like movies. Well, what's your favorite movie? Well, when did you see it? Right? What was your favorite part? And it's just like, it gets on this topic and it continues to dig deeper, which is kind of how human conversation goes anyway. But there just wasn't the connection.
Right.
And we've advanced so much in the last year. I said I worked in telecom. I built 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G networks, right? I kind of stepped away a couple of years ago. And I feel like I can go back now and we're probably at roughly the same point. Right? You can jump back in and not miss a beat. Here, I can't take 2 days off without state of the art just looking drastically different.
It's changed again.
Start over.
What else? So talking of state of the art, then, what announcements this week have specifically resonated with you?
So I think it was focus.
Right.
I mean, a ton of announcements. If anyone can keep up with all the things we announced this week, I'd be impressed.
Right.
I don't envy the job of an analyst who's trying to write up what did Google announce at Next, right? And trying to keep it brief.
Surely you just use Gen AI to do it for you these days.
Sure, absolutely. Exactly. And you create like a 6-hour video with the announcements. But so I thought vids was cool, first off, right? So the integration into Workspace of being able to use prompts and your own library and connections into your docs and other things to be able to create videos. I thought that's an awesome announcement. But I thought that the general focus of generative AI into a couple of key areas of thinking about the world in a set of agents, right? I think we talked about the customer service agent, which kind of spans the entire learn, buy, get, use journey, support journey of customers. We talked about the data agent and how you start building a conversational front end across your data and you can start using it to gather insights, right? I'm a big believer that BI is on the path of some massive disruption.
Yeah, me too.
Right?
Me too.
And from a disruption perspective, I think it's done correctly when your BI homepage looks like google.com. Because people don't come to BI system to see tons of dashboards and graphs. They come with a question, and the graph is a supporting element of that.
The conversational front end to, say, an organization's data is a precursor to AI on the board, surely.
For sure.
Why would you have an AI on the board?
It's always that vision. You just have the voice assistant in the meeting room and the board can ask it questions and it just gives it the answer. I'm a great believer in the dashboard is dead. It will be a thing of the past quite shortly when people get used to asking questions of the system and just getting the data straight away.
Maybe there's good and bad in that, right? When you start making BI accessible to the most senior leaders of an organization.
They'll drill down fast, won't they? People getting random phone calls going, why is that 7 and not 9?
They know too much then.
They know too much power. With great power comes great responsibility.
More importantly, they don't have to come to me to answer the question.
Yeah.
Human out of the loop.
That's right. I mean, BI was great. We obfuscated everything. We made it super confusing so that people mattered.
Kept everyone in a job. It's a good strategy, isn't it?
And that enterprise problem where we've been trying to get like a data framework in place for the last 25 years, that's going to be fixed overnight. And we're like, oh my God, someone's fixed the data problem.
I am going to want to come back to being out of a job. We should discuss that. But I think the other cool stuff at the keynote, right? So we talked about the customer service agent. We talked about the data agent. The coding agent has been well understood. I think the employee agent is going to be really powerful, right? It'll simplify some of the interactions across all back office, HR and legal and IT and all the challenges that you have there, right? I think conversational front ends will be put in front of every single task that exists.
Right. Fascinating thought. And maybe bringing it together with the job aspect. What do you, when you cast forward, pick a time frame, 12 months, 18, 24 months. When do you predict roughly that large-scale enterprise transformation is going to start to happen on the back of that? Because you can see, if you sort of park the workforce element of the conversation for a second, very dramatic shape changes in how organizations function as a result of these things.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time with analysts as well, and I'm trying to synthesize an opinion on what I heard. And I think we all agree that Gen AI, when you start to integrate it into every task, will change just about every job, and the way you do it doesn't matter what job you're in.
Yep.
Right? Maybe you thought at one point that if you're in a creative world, you're insulated from that. It's clearly not the case.
Yeah.
What I heard and what I'm trying to synthesize against is there functional elimination? Are there things that just don't get done by humans anymore? And where within a career path does that exist?
Yeah.
And what's starting to emerge is this, what I'm seeing is that maybe it's the entry level roles that get replaced by AI at an increasing rate. And it kind of makes me start to ponder, how does the future of a career journey look if there's no entry level role for someone who's at an entry level?
Well, look at paralegals.
That is a very powerful point as you think about it, because literally your career is based on rapid learning at the start. And if that's removed, what's that going to do for the workforce throughput?
How do you become like
good at your job?
Yeah, wise. And I think
I'm still trying.
Me too. It's constant. It's a constant journey. But it's in things like judges.
Yep.
So judges go through whatever it is, 20, 30 years worth of legal career to be wise enough to make decisions about other humans. Like, if you therefore replace the first, let's say, 10 years of that career with instant access to information presented to you, does that remove the ability to have future generations that can make wise decisions in the way that humans should, like critical decisions?
100%. I think you don't hire anyone at a first job because they're really good for that first job, right? You hire someone because you believe culturally they'll fit. You believe they have a high propensity to learn at a very rapid rate.
Yeah, good ethic.
But that learning opportunity just needs to be there.
Yeah.
Everyone is going to be really dependent on AI later in their career, right?
Or decisions get made that you have to protect the journeys, and for sort of the goodness of humans developing, sort of thing.
You make a conscious decision not to automate.
Yeah, correct.
Because you
might
need the
automate, but
future.
you also need to create paths through that.
Yeah, and it's for me it's interesting because in Google, everyone in the AI space is not some software engineer techie like you might think. And like last night I was at a dinner and with someone from our responsible AI team, and their degree is in anthropology. Right. Or, a number of the conversational AI people I hire within my team have degrees in linguistics. Right. So it's some of the social skills and social sciences are super relevant in terms of how this tech evolves, and are really good benchmarks for helping us navigate where and how we take our tech forward and how rapidly we release it into the world.
Well, look, Kevin, fascinating conversation this morning. Thanks so much for taking the time to come and talk to us.
My pleasure. I'll look for the output of whether this one was particularly interesting or not.
We'll give you access to Podbots, and you can ask it the question yourself.
Yeah, exactly. We'll send you a link.
Be creative with it.
We'll send you a link.
Is that built on Gemini?
Plead the fifth.
Almost.
We've had it built on all platforms.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. But look, we end every episode of the show by asking our guests what they're excited about doing next, and that could be you're just looking forward to going home and seeing your family at this point in the conference, or it could be something in your professional life. So, Kevin, what are you excited about doing next?
Yeah, it's been a bit of nonstop travel, right? Enterprise Connect was a handful of weeks ago. I'm most excited at going home and hoping to not be divorced.
It's definitely a good KPI to live your life by. Still not divorced today. Excellent. That's your dashboard, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. So just getting a couple of days off. Tomorrow's a global reset day for some of us at Google. So it'll be a day off tomorrow. Monday will be a day off. It'll be a good long weekend.
Nice.
Maybe summer's hit Massachusetts. It wasn't when I left,
Right.
but
Yes,
we'll see.
it feels like it's
Some
been
downtime.
months since you've been there.
Indeed.
Well, look, we wish you all the best for the weekend, and I hope your marriage is still intact.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And joining us for the final conversation of the week, I am delighted to say is Miku Jha, who's the Director of Gen AI Partner Engineering at Google Cloud. Mika, lovely to see you. Thanks for taking some time out of what I'm sure has been a very busy week to come talk to us.
Yeah, we have released 1,000+ features since the last Next, so it has been really, really crazy. But I'm happy to be here.
That you made it.
Yes.
You made it. Sanity still broadly intact.
That's quite good. That's an impressive stat. 1,000 features in less than a year.
Less than 8 months.
8
Yeah.
months. Has it? Yeah, it's pretty- yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, maybe we'll dig into that a little bit
Yeah.
in a second.
Long
how's
work days.
Yeah.
Okay, long days.
So how's Next been for you this year?
Next has been amazing. It's my first Next, so
is it?
I joined Google last year, October, when it was the last Next. But I was like 1 day old into Google.
Right.
So this
right.
time I'm really experiencing it, what I missed last time.
Yeah, the San Francisco one in
Yes.
2023 was my first, I think our first
Yeah, it
one,
was our
right?
first
the
Next,
first
yeah.
time we had the show at, and it was
Yeah.
the first one that we'd been at personally. And what's really striking about this one is the scale of it in comparison
Yeah,
to last year,
yeah.
and the vibe of it, as well as I think some deepening and focusing of some of the messaging that started last year, I would say.
Yeah, and one other thing which is pretty fascinating is the partner ecosystem. Like, it's double of what we had last year in terms of
Right, wow.
attendance and in terms of customer use cases and all of that. That just shows you the intensity with which we are moving
Yes.
in in Gen AI, but also everything partner ecosystem for Google.
It is incredible. It is
Yeah.
incredible. And you mentioned you've only just joined Google, and I think you've got a background in startups around AI, right? Sort of, if you like, the previous generation of artificial intelligence.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say previous. I'm equally biased to traditional predictive AI ML.
You wouldn't want to offend it.
Well,
No, because
it'll get jealous, Dave. That'll be it, won't it?
Like-
That'll be
Because I still think it is so prevalent in the industry. There's still such massive investments being made in predictive AI. If you take finance as an industry vertical, they have been at it for decades, right? So I don't think that is going away, and it doesn't need to be, because it's it has delivered value for years now. Only thing is that Gen AI is such a accelerant to even the predictive AI.
Do you think all the predictive AI is sitting around grumbling about all
the new kid
all
on the block.
all the
Yeah,
new
yeah,
kids
the
on
kid
the block?
Sat there with his arms folded.
Like,
just
it was perfectly good before these chatty AIs started to turn up.
No, I don't think so. See, I'll give you an example. I started I founded my last startup in 2014 when Gen AI at the most was in research labs.
You're right.
Right?
Yeah. It certainly wasn't a conversation.
No, it wasn't. Even AI wasn't like
No.
a common conversation
absolutely.
back then, though the work was going on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And when I started it, this was essentially to say, okay, I mean, it was a North Star. I haven't taken a bigger North Star than that in my life yet, though I have founded 12 startups. I don't know what I was doing with my
12?
life. Yes.
Well, that's
I kind of try to think what I was doing.
Right.
When I get an answer, I'll say why.
You maybe get a bit of AI to try and help you work it out.
Yeah, actually, if I fast forward it today, I would have used AI recommendation to say which one were the bad ideas.
Yeah.
But when I started it, the idea was that, I just thought we should reduce food waste, and AI organically evolved to be the solution to that problem. Said, okay, how do you reduce food waste? You can either grow more food, but you're bounded by land,
Right.
or you can waste less, which
Yep.
is something you can control. So I said, okay, how do we waste less? Okay, so we figured out if you become better at how you inspect food across the supply chain, you will have more data points. There will be less rejection of fresh produce and hence less waste. So it made very logical sense to me.
Right.
And I started the venture, and AI is not where I started. It was the business problem that I was trying to solve for the entire supply chain.
Right.
AI just happened to be the best tool.
Yeah.
And why I say that is that, yes, whether it's predictive AI or generative AI, that paradigm still holds true.
Right.
That are you solving the problem, and is Gen AI organically the right
Yeah.
solution
Yeah.
for that? There seems to be a lot of confusion around it.
Yeah, I think it's just not. I think it's just not well understood.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people probably see Gen AI as the next evolutionary step. So therefore, I don't need predictive AI anymore.
Yeah.
But actually, like everything, it's the right tool for the right
And
job.
and you think about it, when we talk about our Vertex AI in the Google stack, it's the platform for both. It's a platform
Yeah.
for predictive and generative, right?
Right.
Yeah, because
right.
there's certain tasks where you need it to be accurate, and Gen AI has some follies, hallucination being one, which we tackle. That you really it would be a retrograde step to go back.
Yeah.
Yeah, to try a different style, because predictive, as you've said, has
Yeah.
served us extremely well, and it does its job
Yeah.
as intended.
Yeah, like you can still apply linear regression to predict house prices.
Right.
It's
Right.
it will still work. But the fascinating thing with Gen AI is that, like, why are we talking so much about Gen AI, right? If you ask that question, I feel at the macro level, it's the first time that you can interact with a really complex tech stack
Yeah.
in language of your choice.
yeah, yeah,
When
yeah.
has that happened before?
Well, we were
Right?
we were literally talking about that with our previous guest, and it's almost like that interface lulls you into a level of comfort with
Yeah.
extremely advanced technology.
Yeah, and it's a true definition of democratization, right? Doesn't matter who I am, doesn't matter what my technical skills are, doesn't matter whether I even know a common language like English. I can still interact with this system,
Yeah.
and I can not just interact, I can make sense of what is the outcome.
Right.
Right? So that's a paradigm shift in my mind of what started this whole thing. And, going back to predictive AI, I don't think it has to be exclusive, or like you said, it depends on what we are trying to solve. It could be complementary, but there are certain things which were never possible with, what we had before in the technical stack.
I'm interested, given your experience 10 years ago with the startup where you're using predictive AI, what kind of traction you were getting with that when AI really wasn't in the boardroom conversation. It wasn't even really in most IT organization conversations, outside of probably the data science team or something like that.
Yeah.
So what kind of conversations were you having with investors? What level of interest were you getting?
It was very different. One thing was that this was a non-tech industry. It was a food vertical. Right, so even if you said a normal mean for the tech industry, that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
Food is not the first one to adopt technology. Forget adopting AI, that makes it even harder. And when I started having these discussions with some of the largest food supply chain organizations, the question was, we want this problem to be solved, right? Like the problem essentially was that, I'll give you a very simple example. You have a truck full of strawberries. The shipment value might be 50 million. You have 5 minutes to inspect that because there is a queue.
That's a
outside
lot
the
of strawberries to
supplier,
inspect.
Right?
Yeah.
No, and you're going to do sampling-based inspection.
Yeah.
Right? You can't do, it's batch inspection. So to decide the fate of that shipment worth multiple millions, you're only inspecting 100 berries at the most through some person standing there, right? Now imagine that.
Are they like a strawberry taster? Is like that their job? To eat strawberries?
No, like they look for all the visual patterns.
Right.
But taste is one of them.
Yeah.
The level of
That
sugar.
sounds like quite a nice job.
Yeah, sweetness, right? But the idea is that 100 berry decides the multi-million-dollar fate of that shipment, and if it gets rejected, you have lost that. You have wasted the food, you have lost the monetary value, you have lost 8 months of some grower who has invested time to grow berries. This is not like a product, right? It takes time. It's seasonal.
Yeah. It doesn't switch on and off.
So we decided to solve for it, but it was so hard for me to get through the customers that I'm using AI to solve it. It just didn't resonate. And the other problem was, like, even with predictive, if you run it through the system 3 times, you're going to get 3 different results.
Yeah.
It's more predictive than Gen AI, but it's not 100%, right? And the feedback I would get from my customer is that I'm not going to buy a TV that works 99% of time. Why am I supposed to buy your system, which only works 80% or 90%, whatever was my accuracy benchmark? But I started having a different conversation when I said, rather than 100 berries, my system will inspect 2,000 berries in half of the time. Okay. And rather than having 3,000 people on the floor, because labor is a huge problem for food industry, I can get it done in 50 people.
Right.
So why it worked is because I gave them operational efficiency right off the bat. And then we did all the comparison with predictive AI. So that is very true even today. If you can deliver on the metric, we can accelerate Gen AI from being in the experimentation phase to being deployed at scale.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And what's extremely interesting about the sort of the people getting their heads around AI, the level of accuracy and its deployment in the case study that you've just talked about is very different to today, where people are racing to try and throw money at the problem, even when they actually don't know what the hell they're trying to do with it.
And I think that decision making has to change even from the predictive AI phase.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, if you're using a large language model, the outcomes are gonna be different in a much higher spread than what you were doing with predictive AI. So as a business decision maker, the question becomes, are you comfortable with that?
Right.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable with the core nature of LLMs, that it's not going to be super predictive? You can build all the guardrails around that, but fundamentally, are you comfortable using the system? What are your asks from this deployment, right? You have to be very clear on that to invest at scale.
Right.
And maybe it's that a good point, which is that expectation conversation up
Exactly.
front, which says, what do you actually expect to get out of this?
Yeah.
Because this is what I think you're going to get. And that's always been an axiom of IT, which is misaligned expectation has generated some fantastic disappointment in our world, haven't it? Yeah.
I've seen many a large-scale quote-unquote business transformation project get to its like $301 million spend. And people are like, why did we start this again? It's like, I don't really remember. I wasn't working here at the time, were you? No.
Like, are you comfortable putting an LLM system in your tax advisory? Are you comfortable putting your LLM system in your call center, where every once in a while, it's going to give an outcome which might not be mapped to what you're expecting? At the highest level of decision making, that education has to happen, that this is a very different tool to solve the problems you have.
There was that famous story, we talked about it last year, which was the lawyer that didn't have enough time, asked for case precedent through ChatGPT, it hallucinated. In court, gets called out, judge checks, and he gets into a lot of trouble for it. And that's a good example of wrong tool for the job. Check your sources.
Now, I would say that, we have made tremendous progress in terms of, like here, right at Next, we announced that you can use Google search to ground your data. Right? So there are lots of solutions today which can help set that right framework for the systems to work. But you have to still, at the fundamental layer, you have to understand that what are you expecting out of the system and be very clear about that. Like today, you can use RAG to map the outcomes to your corpus of private enterprise data. You can use Google search to ground it. You can tell the model, hey, where exactly are you getting this data from? You can have citations. Right? So there are lots and lots of capabilities and tooling that now we are bringing together, at least in the Google stack, to help you with those decision-making capabilities.
And that, if you think about that story I just said, that was a year ago.
Yeah.
And now the maturity that's available
Exactly.
to defeat those issues in the system is amazing. And that's just 1 year's worth of development associated with this technology.
Yeah. And I'm actually, if you said what are one of the few things which I'm most excited about, though we have announced 1,000 features, the one I'm most excited about, which anchors this topic, is the Google search data.
Right.
Because look at the scale of how you can ground your outcomes using this data, right? This is the best data you can have to ground the outcomes from your models.
A massive confidence builder in the technology, and we can use it and we can trust it, etc.
So picking up the thread on different types of AI, the right tool for the right job, and solutioning generally, and the way you described your solution is you started with the business problem and then started to apply technology to it. It seems, however, in a lot of Gen AI cases, it's the Gen AI is the answer now, what's the problem? So how would you advise organizations going into sort of whether it's innovation cycles or whether it's proof of concept or MVPs to be engaging with AI as a technology in the right way?
Yeah, and it's a very important and fundamental question. See, I would start by saying that when you are in the exploratory/experimentation phase with Gen AI, it's so much fun. Right? But when you say, okay, now how do I make it enterprise scale? The world changes.
Rob is in the 18th month of still being amused by getting ChatGPT to do cheese jokes. It's like, it wasn't funny after the second one. He's still doing it.
I could go. It's the thing for me. Haikus. I still ask it to write haikus. I find that incredibly difficult thing to do, and Gen AI just pops them out repeatedly with different things. Great.
Are they always correct?
And well, occasionally, but there's sometimes they're a bit odd, but it's far better than anything I'd ever be able to do. That's for damn sure.
It's funny you said haiku because my name Miku is a variant of haiku.
Ah, there you go.
Which I didn't know because I'm Indian and this is Japanese.
Right.
My mom just picked up a random name and it, I grew up to figure out it has to mean something somewhere. But, coming back to the question, I think first thing is that you have to acknowledge that enterprise scale Gen AI deployment is still a hard challenge, right? I'm going to be very transparent here. And you have to take the approach. See, models are the conversation starters for Gen AI use case, but it's not about the models, right? We have 130 models in Vertex AI Model Garden. So the idea is that you want to invest, you have to be platform centric. Models will change every 6 months or every 3 months or, right now at the pace, every next week you might have a different model. So the question is, you have to become platform centric as opposed to model centric. That's one. Second thing is, you always, this I learned from having scratches in my back, running multiple AI startups, that you always have to start from at least have a North Star of what is the problem and what is the ROI, what is the metric that you want the system to deliver on. Only then you are going to make the right choices about the model, about the platform, about the data. If you don't, and if you're just saying, okay, Gen AI is so exciting and I'm going to apply it to something, it might be a good thing, but it's not going to get you to the enterprise level scale at the speed that you want, right?
It's very good that you mentioned that, because I see lots of customers thinking Gen AI is the solution to everything, right? I don't need a solid data platform. I don't need security implemented, but it still needs that.
It's great you bring that up because, I keep telling when I have customer meetings, there's no data without Gen AI and there's no Gen AI without data. I mean, it's not a marketing statement. Think about it. Gen AI cannot really deliver that value unless you have clean, curated, awesome data set to back it up. And if your data is sitting somewhere and you're not applying Gen AI to it, then you're losing the insights that you could potentially gain today. Right? So it's a flywheel effect that data pulls Gen AI and Gen AI pulls data. In fact, I would go even a step further and I would say that, Gen AI today is driving cloud
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because it's not data, right? You have the infrastructure, you have the platform,
Well,
you have the components.
it almost feels like, actually, having been in the cloud world for 10 years,
Yeah.
it almost feels like AI is the killer app
It's
finally.
the accelerant for the cloud,
Yeah.
right?
That's the reason to go full bore on
Yeah.
cloud.
Exactly, right? So I think, those are the things. And the last thing would be, it's if you have solved the metric, you have solved the model, you have solved the platform, and you have solved the data, you are still only 30% done to get to the enterprise scale. The rest of it, which is where we see a lot of projects not make it, is to understand other aspects, data governance, right?
Yes.
You might
Everyone's favorite subject,
Right?
Miku.
If you're not thinking about it, like whose data are you using? Which data are you using? Are you able to use that for training? Can you use that for inference, right? That's so huge. And it's a very complex kind of a scenario when you throw Gen AI to it, right? And the next thing is at what extent you are going to embrace being responsible, right? It's not for just like a check mark. The thing is that today it's so easy to get the outcome, like we talked about ChatGPT, right?
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it can have a very, like a negative impact on your brand if you're not thinking about responsible AI and data governance
Yeah.
from day zero, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not something which you can say, okay, I'm going to go step A, B, C, D.
Yeah.
And the last mile, I'm going to put something together or think about governance and responsible AI. It's not going to work. It's too late.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, absolutely. So when you think about use cases and actually quantifiable use cases, what are some of the good ones that you've seen, and what makes them good?
Yeah.
In a reusable template sort of way.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many use cases, and I'm always fascinated with use cases. One we are seeing, I'll talk about the horizontal use cases, meaning the ones which are very common, regardless of which industry vertical you're talking about.
Right.
So like customer support is one, right? You can, again, get to operational efficiencies very quickly, especially with, in Google Stack, you have CCAI and a lot of other solutions. So that, regardless of the industry vertical, you can get the operational efficiencies today, right? That's one. Second is, developer productivity. It is massive, and it is it's my most favorite use case because you have an easy start to it, and you can quantify your gains again from the time saved or the efficiencies of any kind of developer productivity.
In that specific one, and maybe the clue's in the title, but I'm interested in not only productivity in terms of efficiency. What are you seeing just in terms of code quality and creativity? Is that measures you've seen in this sort of space?
No, it's honestly fascinating, right? Like, because I have been a firmware engineer as my, in the start of my career, and I could tell you I was working. I'm gonna be a little bit geeky here for a second. But
we like that. We like that.
We like
I
a
was
bit of geek.
working on software iSCSI at VMware. It was. So I would look at, the network packet traces for almost a week to figure out which packet got lost. Okay, that was my day job.
Everybody loves analysing a packet trace. I mean, happiest moment of my life.
When you find that.
Well, it is though. There is a like the heavens open and it's ta-da when you find it and you go, I've got it.
I've got it, right?
Got it.
But to go through that code base, 1 week was to find the packet. To go through VMware's entire hypervisor stack took me weeks. Now, think about it, right? For a second, with Pro 1.5, okay, you have 1 million context tokens in your context window. And Pro 1.5, we announced it yesterday, is fully integrated with Gemini Code Assist.
Right.
So in theory, I could have taken all those files, put it in the context window, and I would have saved months for myself to do the same debugging and instrumentation and what have you, right?
So think of all the fun you'd have missed, though.
That's true. and the bragging, right? When I find
Exactly. Exactly.
I was a newbie at VMware, And it gave me the bragging right to go to all the VMware fellows and tell me there is a bug in your network crash. I'm like,
Found it.
you know, what could be more rewarding than that?
I can imagine, you know, like on Hollywood movies when they're like the goodies like trying to prepare for a case in court or something, and they're working nights and like piling up pizza boxes. Was it like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of my most favorite moments of being a techie to go and tell VMware, hey, your kernel has a bug in it.
Oh, it's right deep in the core as well.
But, you know, I think it's not just about, you know, code completion or code generation.
Yeah.
Those are very core, like you would say, basic applications of what you can do with Gen AI in the software development world. It's just evolving to, you know, like whether it's instrumentation, whether you are going back to how do you secure your APIs, right? So all of those are now in a unified way available to you so that you can just fast iterate and get to that application goal in kind of a, you know, speed that was unprecedented, impossible before without Gen AI.
I spent a lot of my time when I was a developer at Googling potential solutions, right?
Yes, we all have.
But the thing is, to the use case, you had to find the bug that you found.
Yeah.
A small number of people have the tenacity and the capability to do that. Now the technology is allowing that anybody can find that bug. Yeah,
exactly. That's the power of it, because I can upload with 1 million tokens. I can upload the entire code repository in the context window. Think about the use cases. Just that one thing opens up. Like, I remember I was advising a startup. This is again back in 2018. And the idea was that, you know, you had, like any movies, right? But I'm going to talk about Bollywood movies for a second, right?
Yeah.
So the idea was that you want to find the frame where the lead actor has the best expressions.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? Simple use case. You would need weeks and months with copywriters and everybody to go through that video frame by frame by frame by frame and find that key frame, very similar to the packet which we are talking about, right? Now you can do it in minutes, if not seconds.
Yeah.
Upload the entire video, create the best fascinating moments, create the highlights. The other thing is, you know, cricket, right? So entire India goes on a holiday when you have cricket matches, but everybody doesn't have time to invest in watching multiple hours. They all want highlights.
Yeah.
How are you going to curate that highlight and make it refreshed every single day? You have to spend it's like a project which now can be done in seconds with anyone.
So when you think about those examples and the huge leaps in what could be potentially done, the time saved, Rob's point on the lowering the bar of entry.
Yeah.
When you sort of cast forward 12 or 18 months, what does the world look like?
I think it's going to be a fascinating world with kind of solutions and new ideas which are currently brewing. You know, it's not that it's all in our heads. These are currently brewing. And also, I think what brings that change is multimodality, right?
Yeah.
Because that I feel, you know, is the closest to how we as humans think and process our world, right? Like, I'm talking, I'm listening, I'm viewing the podcast, I'm doing all those things simultaneously at the same time.
Yeah.
Right? So multimodality is another paradigm shift, right? Where you can have your inputs, whether it's text, video, audio, what have you, and all of that along with the reasoning capabilities. When you bring that together, I think, you know, even 12 months from today, we're going to have fascinating enterprise applications. Right now, it's a white space. If you said, show me the enterprise application white space, it's very similar to when the mobile revolution just started and you had these basic gaming apps on iPhone before the App Store. That's where we are at, right? Like, if you said powerful enterprise apps built on Gen AI, that's going to completely change. That white space is going to change in 12 months.
And that's a great analogy about the phone being the platform and the app within it. People didn't understand what was about to happen. But now, if you rewind and didn't have that, you'd be lost when you run your life off the apps on those platforms.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also the other thing I feel is that, if you go back to the startup ecosystem, which is again very rich with developers, that's going to change, because now, if I go back to 2014, you don't need 100 people startup. You don't need any of that to put these powerful enterprise apps into the ecosystem. One single entrepreneur on their own can come up with applications and solutions just by building on top of the existing stack. That has never happened before.
Well, I think on that note, let's leave the conversation for this year. Maybe we'll revisit it next year. Let's see what that space is developing.
Yeah, I might be terribly wrong
like.
at everything.
Yeah.
But I'll be technically wrong. From vision perspective, we will get there.
And it has been a real joy to have a conversation with you as our last conversation of the week. So thanks again for making time for us.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful. Thank you so
Been
much.
great to see you.
Thanks.
And we end every episode of this podcast by asking our guest what they're excited about doing next. And that might be you just excited to go home now, or it might be something that's coming along in your professional life. So Miku, what are you excited about doing next?
Yeah, I mean, it might sound a little cliched, but I'm excited about actually understanding what are all those 1,000 announcements that we have made. Going into the double clicking it, because I know half of it, but not the other half.
Surely you're just going to feed it into a model and then just ask it a series of questions.
Let it summarize it, right?
Yeah.
Give all the highlights, all the key highlights.
Yeah, but that's going to be my fun weekend.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Doesn't get any better than that, Miko. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so that is a wrap from Google Next 2024. Some good conversations this week, I think.
It has been a fun one, nice vibe, gone well. Liked it as an event. It was good fun.
My first Google event, really liked it. Liked the announcements. I like where we are with the state of AI. And I'm really looking forward to the next 8 to 10 months.
It does have an exciting feel.
Yeah.
It's just going to get better and better.
Well, it's been good, I think. I've enjoyed having AI. Obviously, it's the subject of the time, so it would be hard not to do it on AI. But actually basing the whole show around it this week, both Next itself and then our response to Next on the podcast here, has been interesting, hasn't it? To be able to deep dive into it. And sometimes, let's face it, we've heard some brochureware, and then sometimes we've heard some actually amazing use cases that are starting to emerge at scale, and then other times we've had really interesting sort of philosophical takes on it. So I think that's quite a good representation of the way AI is being handled here at the moment.
And I really like all the insights of our different guests, right? Different industries, different topics.
It's been very
but
varied.
all AI.
Very varied. Yeah, so the AI meets theme has, I think, worked well to try and describe what's going to actually happen. The future is bright.
Indeed. Well, look, on that note, should we head home?
Yep, let's go home.
Let's go home. So a huge thanks to our guests, Kevin and Miku. Thank you so much for being on the show. Thanks also to our sound and editing wizards, Ben and Louis, our striking producer, Marcel, and of course to all of our listeners. We're on LinkedIn and X, Dave Chapman, Rob Kernahan and Sjoukje. Feel free to follow or connect with us, and please get in touch if you have any comments or ideas for the show. And of course, if you haven't already done that, rate and subscribe to our podcast. See you in another reality next week.
And we shouldn't forget a big shout out to our favourite listener, Marion.
Hi, Marion.
Thank you, Marion.
Hope you enjoyed the episodes.